students. Welcome to this TV session, which is devoted to the English back test. In the previous session, we focused on the reading and language components. Today, we are going to focus on the writing part, which is a very important section in the test. I hope this session will give you the clarifications you need to take the exam in the best way possible. Let's begin. So this session was prepared by me in collaboration with Mrs. Rajezeir, our senior English inspector. We start with the writing component, then it includes two tasks. The first is a guided writing exercise and a productive task. Both tasks are corrected according to a detailed grid that evaluates three levels. So first, we evaluate your adherence to task and content adequacy. What does this mean? It means how far you keep to the topic, have you used the information provided effectively? When we read, do we know who is writing to whom, why you are writing, and how relevant your ideas are to the topic. The second level, we evaluate your lexical appropriacy and grammar accuracy. This means that we evaluate the appropriate use of vocab and how correct your grammar is. Finally, we evaluate the mechanical accuracy. We mean the punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. Have you used the words correctly? Have you spelled them correctly? Have you used punctuation and capitalization appropriately? The use of linkers is important, and the use of logical sequencing of ideas. And finally, the layout, the way you present your essay, especially if you are writing a formal letter. We start then with the guided writing task 1. For this exercise, you might be asked to write a dialogue completion or to develop full sentences from notes, or to write a short paragraph from given notes. We will see the difference between these two types of exercises. The first task, so dialogue completion. What's a dialogue completion? It consists in completing a dialogue or an interview. So you will be provided with a gapped dialogue or a gapped interview, and you have to add the missing parts. So, how should you proceed? First, you have to be careful whether the missing utterance is a question or an answer. There are hints that will guide you to the right answer. Then, if you need a question, you have to be careful to the type of question required, whether it is a yes or no question, or a WH question, or a direct or indirect question. Finally, you have to be careful to the tense and the form that need to be used in your sentence. Let's try it. Here we have a dialogue sample. It's a dialogue between Sarah and Peter. The words written in green, these are the hints that are going to lead you to the right answer. The dialogue starts with Sarah. She says, "So, you are going abroad this summer?" Then we have a blank and question mark. What about Peter? Peter says, "Spain." Then we understand that Sarah is going to answer about Peter's destination. He's going to Spain. Therefore, what about the appropriate question to this answer? And what about the tense used in Sarah's sentence? You are going abroad this summer. So it's about the future. We have to respect the tense used. How can we answer this question? Spain. So it might be, where are you going? Have you made up your mind about your destination? Or maybe, where are you planning to go? Where will you go? And the answer is Spain. Then Sarah replies, wow, lucky you. I hope I can go there one day. Then she asks, why Spain in particular? And Peter answers, because. Therefore, we understand that for this answer, we need a sentence. We don't need a question. We need an affirmative sentence. And we have to give a reason why he has chosen Spain. Because. Because I've always loved to visit Spain. Because Spain is famous for its beaches. Because I want my vacation to be full of thrilling art, monuments, beautiful cities, and wonderful beaches. Then Sarah answers, that will be great. And she asks us a new question, to which Peter answers, 2 weeks. What about 2 weeks? This is the period of time he intends to spend in Spain. So we have to find a question that corresponds to this question. It's about duration. We need a WH word and a WH question about duration. It's how long? How long are you staying there? Or how long will you stay there? And the answer is 2 weeks. Finally, Sarah asks one more question. Will you phone me? And Peter answers no, something blank instead. It means that he will not phone Sarah, he will do something else. He might maybe email her, he might maybe post pictures on Facebook or Instagram, or he may also send a postcard. So the question is, will you phone me? Peter has to answer by saying, I will send. I will not phone you. I will send a postcard instead. As you can see, we have therefore in this dialogue 4 missing utterances. For the art section, they will have 5 missing utterances, and we alternate between questions and answers, okay? Therefore, you have to be careful to all these details if ever you were asked to complete a dialogue. I hope it was clear. Let's move to the second type of writing, guided writing you might be asked to write. Here you might be asked to develop full sentences from notes. The notes will be provided for you, and you will have to develop them into correct sentences that together make up a coherent paragraph. Therefore, there are words you need to add to make your sentences coherent. What can you or what should you add? First, to make your sentences coherent, we need to add articles. Articles like a, an, the. You can, in some cases, add demonstratives. For example, this, that, these, those are also allowed. You will need to use prepositions, different types of prepositions, different words. So in, at, from, to, before, after, it depends on the sentences. You will need to use personal and you will need to use pronouns, different types of pronouns, either personal or possessive pronouns, he, his, him, I, etc. And relative pronouns to link clauses together. So relative pronouns, which, that, who, sometimes even where, maybe, when, all right? Linkers, of course, you will need to use linkers, but you should not overload your paragraph with linkers. You will need to add auxiliaries, be and have. You will need to use modal verbs such as can, will, must, should, need, okay, whatever the sentence requires. You will also have to put verbs and words in the right tense or form. However, you must be careful because you must not change the order of the words. It's not a reordering exercise. You have to keep the words in the order you are provided with them. Let's read this sample. So the question says, use the notes below to develop a 4-line paragraph about virtual schools. First, they give us maybe a type of definition. The virtual school, modern approach, / learning. Then, the benefits, comfortable, good option, handicapped, bullied children. Then, side effects or drawbacks, no exercise, limited social life. So here we have 3 sentences about the virtual school, and we have to develop these 3 sentences into a paragraph by adding the words we have just mentioned. Where should we add these words? It must be at the slash. So whenever there is a slash, there is something missing. Let's have a trial. The first sentence is usually like a definition, as if we were asked the question, what is the virtual school? So, the virtual school is, you see we have added the auxiliary be, the article, modern approach to learning, and the preposition to. So here is the first sentence, it is the introduction, it is the definition. The virtual school is a modern approach to learning. Then we have to move to the benefits. We can say, to avoid repetition, we replace the virtual school by it. It has many, it has several, it has diverse, it has numerous benefits. So it's better to write short sentences. And then I'm going to give some of these benefits. Indeed, or actually, or in fact. It's comfortable. You see, after comfortable, you have a slash. Therefore, we need something. And it is a good option, slash. Then the slash is replaced by the preposition for, a good option for handicapped, not just handicapped, but also bullied children. Therefore, we replace the second slash by and for handicapped and bullied children. That's all for this sentence. Now we move to the side effects. So it's a counter argument. Therefore, we need a linker of contrast. We could use however, we could use yet, we could use nevertheless. It does have some side effects. Here I've used the emphatic form, it does have, just to insist on the idea that the virtual school also has drawbacks. Why? What about these side effects? Because, since in this context is the equivalent of because. Since there is no physical exercise and a limited social life. this is all for the paragraph. So, as you can see, I have used all the information I have been provided with. I have added what is missing, and I have a coherent paragraph about the virtual school. We move now to another type of writing. Writing a short paragraph from given notes. What about this exercise? You are asked to write a short biography or report or paragraph with the information provided in a table or a chart. And this is the slight difference with the previous exercise. The same recommendation, you have to use all the information provided. We insist on the word all the information provided. You have to write in a coherent way. The first sample is biographies. How to write a biography? First, what is a biography? A biography is the story of a person's life written by someone else. Therefore, biographies have to be written in a chronological order. We have to respect the order of events as they have happened in the person's life. Therefore, we have to start by the person's birth, childhood and family background, education, achievements, and finally death, if the person is, of course, dead. However, you should not add any personal information, even if you knew who the person was. The same thing, use all the information provided. Finally, you have to bear in mind that biographies are written in an objective way. This means that you don't have to give any personal opinion about the person you are writing about. Here is a sample. You are asked to write a short biography of Ahmed Ziwail. So, Ahmed Ziwail, you are supposed to you have learned about him, okay, in Unit 3. So, Ahmed Ziwail, birth, we have Egypt, and date, February 26, 1946. His education, so we have 3 dates here. In 1969, obtained master's degree, University Alexandria. 1974, move, USA. Finish, doctorate, University, Pennsylvania. 1982, grant American citizenship, means he became an American citizen. So, when we read, we focus on the slashes. Obtain / master's degree, we understand that there is something missing there. When we read the second sentence, for example, 1974, move USA, the reason, why, the purpose, finish, doctorate at University, Pennsylvania. For the achievements, so why is Ahmed Ziwail famous? 1999, award, Nobel Prize, chemistry. The reason? Developing rapid laser technique. Finally, Ahmed Ziwail has quite recently died, okay? Died in 2016. So how are we going to put all this information into a paragraph? You see, Ahmed Ziwail was born in Egypt on February 26, 1946. Here we insist on, I have underlined the date because many students confuse the use of in and on. Why did I use on February and not in February? Because we have February 26th. It's the date, okay, the day of his birth. Therefore, we need to use on. In 1969, or as an alternative, we have to use a variety of techniques to make our biography quite light and interesting to read. When he was 23 years old, he obtained, you see, simple past because we have a date in 1969. He obtained a master's degree from the University of Alexandria, and in 1974, okay, or we can, for example, instead of saying in 1974, we can replace it by 5 years later. He moved to the USA. Why? To finish his doctorate or PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. So you see, instead of saying in instead of saying in 1982, I have replaced it by 9 years later. He was granted, of course, okay, he was granted the American citizenship. As you can see, in biographies, you need to use short sentences. In 1999, Ahmed Zewail was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Why? For developing a rapid laser technique. Last sentence, Ahmed Zewail died on August 2nd, 2016. Now I draw your attention to the letters written in green. Why? This is very important. And earlier I explained that when we correct the test, when we correct your writings, we take into consideration the mechanics of writing, and of course by mechanics of writing, one of the components is capitalization. So when do we use capital letters in English? We use capital letters when we have proper names, Ahmed Zewail. We use capital letters at the beginning of sentences. You see, in 1969, when he was 9 years later, in 1999. Finally, Ahmed Zewail again. We use capital letters, names of countries, Egypt, USA, names of cities, towns, states, Pennsylvania. Names of, so when we have months, February, August, they have to be capitalized. We use capital letters for example, to speak about diplomas and degrees, doctorate, PhD. Also, titles, Nobel Prize, chemistry. And finally, okay, we use capital letters for adjectives related to nationalities. Okay, you have American. If we had to use the adjective Egyptian, we would have written it with a capital E. So be careful to all these details in addition to punctuation, otherwise your mark will be affected. The second, maybe, type of writing or paragraph you will have to write is a chart report. Many students find this task quite challenging, but once you know how to deal with it, it becomes easy. So, what should you do? You have to write a short report about a given chart by introducing the document. First, you have to introduce your document. What do you mean by introduce the document? You have to mention the source, means where it is taken from, who issued it, the date, when was it published, when was it made public, when was it released, and finally, the main issue means what it is about. Then you have to analyze the data in an objective way. Objective means without trying to explain the results. You are just there to report what the results say in an objective way, unless only in the case it's mentioned in the instructions. Of course, to write your report, you will need some words, like words of comparison and contrast, because you are going to compare and contrast maybe data. And also, you will need to use the appropriate linkers. Let's have a look at a chart. So here we have a chart. We are asked to use the data in the chart below to write a short paragraph about smoking-related deaths in the USA. We have in the middle about 443,000 deaths in the United States. We are not talking about any country or the world. We have to be clear, it's about the United States. So every year in the United States, every year about 443,000 people die due to cigarette smoking. But these deaths, of course, have different reasons. What about the first cause of death related to smoking? We have lung cancer in 29% of the cases, or 128,900 people die every year because of cancer. The second is what we call ischemic heart disease, let's say heart disease, in 28% of the cases, so almost the same level, on the same level as lung cancer. Followed by chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in 21% of the cases, or 92,900 people. Followed by other diagnoses, 10%, or 44,000. Other types of cancer in 8% of the cases. And finally, stroke in 4% of the cases. So you can see we have plenty of figures and statistics, and we have to write our report in such a way that it's not repetitive and monotonous. We have to use a variety of words to make it as light as possible. Let's have a try. Each year, about 443,000 deaths are attributed or related to cigarette smoking in the USA. So what do we notice first for this chart? We don't have the source. We don't know who released this document. However, we know what it is about and which country is concerned. Therefore, that's for the first sentence. We have introduced to some extent the chart. We have introduced the main topic of it. Now we start. So what about these 443,000 deaths? Indeed, lung cancer ranks first, means is in the first position, with about 128,900 deaths, and represents 29% of the cases. It's followed by ischemic heart disease, which is responsible for 126,000 fatalities annually. So I have tried to add some words, as I said, to make the paragraph or to make the report less repetitive. Then we have Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is third, means is in the third position, as it triggers death. Triggers means causes. It causes death in 21% of the cases, which equals or amounts to 92,900 people. For the last three causes, I've tried to put them together. Okay, you have other diagnoses, cancers, and stroke. So together, 10, 4, and 18, we have 22%. You see, the remaining 22% are caused by other types of cancer, various diagnoses, and stroke, with respectively 35,300 cases for the first. So when we say the first, we mean types of cancer. 44,000 deaths for the second, we refer to various diagnoses, and about 16,000 casualties or victims for the latter. The latter means the last item to be mentioned in the previous sentence, and here we refer to, of course, stroke. This is then a sample of a chart report. So, the third type of writing, here it's a paragraph. You will be asked to write a paragraph about any topic related to the curriculum, to what you have studied in class, either topics or subtopics. So you have to get ready to any topic. As we have previously said, you have to use all the information provided, but this time the information will be provided in a table. Do not add any personal information and do not change the order of the words. As you can see, the recommendations are almost the same. Here is a sample. So, use the notes in the table below to write a 5-line paragraph about Maram Solidarité. So it is in French. That's the title, that's the name of this organization. We have to keep it as it is. The name is in French, Maram Solidarité. What do we have in the table? We have the type of organization. It is non-governmental. It means that it does not depend on the government. It is a charity organization. Foundation means when was this organization started. So here, Maram's parents, / January 2014, / Tunisia. The same procedure. Whenever there is a slash, there is something missing. The aims now, the goals of this organization, what this organization hopes to achieve. So, it has, as we can see, 3 aims. The first, build center children cancer. Send doctors study Europe's top research centers. And support poor families, children cancer. Finally, how, if you are interested, how can you contribute to this organization? There are 3 ways: either a 1 dinar SMS, a bank transfer, and in-kind contributions. So, how are we going to use this information, the information provided in the table, to write our paragraph? As we earlier said, the first sentence in any paragraph, almost any paragraph, the first sentence should be like a definition, as if you were asked to answer the question, what is? Whatever the topic is, the first sentence is introducing. So you introduce either the organization, the brand, the event, the festival, anything you were asked to write about, you have to introduce it and to define it. What is Maram Solidarité? Is a non-governmental organization. Instead of beginning a new sentence, I'm using a relative pronoun to link both sentences together. Maram Solidarité is a non-governmental organization that, or which, was founded by Maram's parents in January 2014 in Tunisia. As you can see, then we have used the information, so the type and the foundation. Instead of using the word foundations or foundation, we have replaced it by the verb, okay? And may she rest in peace. Okay, Maram, she is a little girl who died of cancer in 2014, and after her death, then her parents decided to start this charity organization. They are doing great job to help children, and we will see later in the paragraph the goals, and the achievements of this organization. We go on then. Now we have reached the aims. We shouldn't write the word aims, the aims of the organization, or the organization's aim. The organization's aims are. It's better to introduce it differently. You see, it, or the organization, aims at. We have previously seen that it has three aims. First, build, then send, and finally, support. So, aims at, after at, we have to use the ing form. It aims at what? Building centers for children. What about these children? Children who suffer from cancer. This is the first aim. Comma. The second now aim, sending doctors to study in Europe's top research centers. That's the second. And now we have reached the last item, the last aim. Therefore, we need to use the linker and supporting poor families. What about these families? Families whose children have cancer or suffer from cancer. So to avoid repeating suffer from, we have used have cancer. Now, which technique have we used? We have organized our sentence by using parallelism, in terms that as we have aims at doing something, so aims at building, aims at sending, and aims at supporting. Finally, if you are interested, you can contribute to, we say to contribute to something, this organization. How? By making a bank transfer or by sending a $1 SMS or some in-kind contributions. In-kind contributions means, here it means maybe not money, but you can send medicine, you can send food, you can send clothes, anything that could help these children. Even furniture, because they will need this furniture to equip, for example, research centers, hospitals, etc. That's all then. As I said, whatever the topic is, you have to use all the information you have, and the first sentence, you have to introduce the event, the brand, the charity, anything you are asked about, you have to introduce it in the first sentence. And the first word should be the name of the event or the brand or anything you are asked to write about. That's all for the writing task 1. Now let's move to the writing task 2, what we call the productive task. As you can see on the board, you have 4 different types of tasks. You might be asked to write an article, or a report, or a speech, and finally, a letter, an email, or a blog entry. So we've put them together because it's almost the same type of writing. Let's begin then with the general guidelines for the free writing. First, you have to read the instructions carefully and underline the key words. Then, you have to make sure you understand. That's very important. What you are asked to write. When you read the instructions and you underline the keywords, you are asked to write a letter. I underline letter. Or am I asked to write an article? Am I asked to write a report? Am I asked to write a speech? Because each type of writing has its specifics. We do not write a letter the way we write an article. And articles are different from speeches. So we have to be clear, we have to be sure about what we are asked to write about, to write first. The second point, who you are writing to. Are you writing to a friend, or are you writing to the editor of a newspaper? For example, why? Because when you write to a friend, you are going to use an informal style. However, if you were asked to write to the editor of a newspaper, you have to use another register, and you will have to use a formal language. Are you writing to the general public? Are you writing to fellow students? So this question is very important. Who am I writing to? So first, what am I asked to write? Who am I asked to write to? Then why are you writing? The purpose. What is the purpose? Are you writing to inform, or are you writing to ask for information? Are you writing to advise, or are you asking for advice? Are you writing to complain, for example? Are you writing to apply for something? Are you writing to sensitize people to something? Are you writing to suggest solutions, measures? Are you writing to warn people? So this is the purpose. Why am I writing? So the first question is, what am I writing? To whom am I writing? And why am I writing? And of course, the last question is, what am I writing about? What is the issue? What is the topic? This is very important. Once you have answered these questions, you start thinking about your arguments, about your ideas, whether you need arguments for, arguments against, advantages, disadvantages, whether you need solutions, whether you need measures, etc. So you list them on your draft paper. Of course, you need to support your ideas with concrete examples, especially from everyday life. If you have some figures or statistics, of course, you are required to add them. And don't forget to add quotes. As I have previously explained, you have to use appropriate language style, formal, informal, depending on whom you are writing to. Do not include any new arguments in the conclusion. So new ideas must be introduced in the body, never in the conclusion. Use the linking words and phrases you have been taught again appropriately, and don't overload your essay with linkers. Finally, remember that you have to respect the word limit, because in most cases you are asked to write either 12 or 15 lines, no more. And if you go, if you go beyond that word limit, your marks will usually be deducted. So the mark will be affected. You have to respect the word limit. You will be asked to respect. Let's begin then. The first type, articles. If ever I were asked to write an article. What is an article first? An article is like a direct conversation with the reader. As if you were talking to the reader, but instead of talking, here you are writing. Therefore, the targeted reader is mentioned in the instructions. It means that in the instructions, they tell you who you are supposed to be writing to. You are writing to, for example, the editor of a magazine. You are writing to a columnist. So this is what we mean by the targeted reader is mentioned in the instructions. Everything you write must engage the reader's interest. What does this mean? It means that whatever you write, the reader must feel involved in what you have written, must feel concerned about what you have written. Therefore, the best way is to start with a catchy title, because that catchy title will attract the reader's attention. It will make the reader interested in the article and go on reading. Of course, support your ideas with quotes, examples, and statistics whenever possible. Use a variety of techniques to make your article interesting, otherwise it becomes monotonous and repetitive. The use of questions, for example, is highly recommended. So use a question and you try to answer it in your article. Let's have a sample. Here you have read the following statement in an e-magazine. It says, scientific inventions are meant to serve humans. Are meant to serve humans. Write a 12-line article for your school e-magazine to explain the statement. Support your explanation with concrete examples. So, earlier I tried to explain, I gave you the questions, so here is the sample. How am I going to turn the topic into 4 questions? I have to answer these 4 questions. The first question, as we previously said, what am I asked to write? In the instructions, it says a 12-line article. So I am asked to write an article. I have to remember that an article requires a catchy title. So I have to think of a catchy title. The second question is, what about? What is the issue I'm going to tackle in the article? Here, the issue is scientific inventions. But what's the purpose? What about these scientific inventions? Am I going to list the advantages and disadvantages? Or am I going to focus on the advantages? Am I going to focus on the disadvantages? The instructions are clear. Write to explain the statement. So the purpose, of course, I'm going to explain the statement by showing how scientific inventions help us live a better life. Because the quote says, scientific inventions are meant to serve humans. So they have only, okay, advantages. They have advantages only, sorry. They help us live a better life. I have to use concrete examples from everyday life, and there are plenty of examples that show that these scientific inventions have really helped us live a better life, that they have improved our quality of life. Finally, and this is one of the most important questions, to whom am I asked to write? The targeted audience, as we said, it is mentioned in the instructions. So your school e-magazine, therefore you are going to write to your friends, to fellow students. Therefore you have to use a language that matches with your friends' mindsets. Okay? Consequently, now I have answered my questions. Next step will be arguments. I will have to list down my arguments on a draft paper. I write my arguments, okay, and I list them. Then I start organizing my arguments from the most important to the least important. I try to organize my arguments because sometimes there are main ideas and there are minor ideas. So I try to put them together using appropriate linkers. And of course, in the conclusion, all right, you might maybe express your point of view in the conclusion. This is for the article. The second type of writing is a speech. The same thing. What is a speech? A speech is meant to be delivered in front of an audience. So it is spoken, it is meant to be spoken and not written. However, any person, okay, needs to prepare a speech or their speech before they start. Okay, so is meant to be delivered in front of an audience. First step, greet your audience and thank them for attending the event. That's very important. You are in front of an audience, people are listening, are watching, and therefore you need to greet your audience and thank them for being there. Then introduce yourself, maybe yourself, the organization, the company, whatever, okay, you speak on its behalf. And of course, the topic you are going to talk about. Use a language that engages your audience. The same thing, you must make your audience feel interested in what you are saying. So they must feel involved in what you are saying. So you can start with, of course, greeting your audience. You can use expressions like ladies and gentlemen in a formal way. Or if you are talking to friends, you can just say, dear friends, welcome to this meeting. First of all, I would like to thank you for coming. Then, okay, you introduce the topic of the meeting, the topic of the speech. Today's meeting is about, and then you start giving your arguments. The last then type of writing is writing letters. So letters are of two types. We speak about formal letters and informal letters. What is an informal letter? An informal letter is a personal letter written to a friend, to a relative, or just to someone you know, okay, an acquaintance. However, a formal letter is a letter written to someone you don't know personally, and it's usually of a business nature. So, formal letters are different. We can be asked to write a letter of application. We apply for a job, for example, we apply for a course at university. You can be asked to write a letter of complaint if ever you were dissatisfied with anything, okay? A thank you letter, a letter of recommendation, and so on. So there are different types of formal letters. As we said, they are of business nature. Now, you have to be careful, mainly when I ask you to write a formal letter. Why? Because you have to use formal language and expressions. That's very important. Do not use abbreviations. For example, instead of using the word ad or advert, you have to use the full word, advertisement. Okay? Not ad, advertisement. Do not use contractions and numbers. Let's see it how. For example, you have I am a 20-year-old student. We don't say I'm a 20-year-old student. So I am instead of am, and 20 must be written, any number must be written in full letters. The same, another example. You don't say I don't have a driving license. You have to say I do not have a driving license. So pay attention to these details. They will affect your mark. Of course, to greet your recipient, okay, the receiver, you have to use a formal greeting. For example, dear sir, dear madam, dear Mrs. Jones, dear Mrs. Jones, okay? And the same for the set phrases for the closing of the letter. You have to use yours faithfully, yours sincerely, okay? These are the formal expressions to be used. Let's have some samples. So on the left of the screen, you have an example of an informal letter. We will see why it is an informal letter. On the right side, we have a formal letter. Let's read the first one. Your friend Adam intends to go on a package tour organized by our local travel agency. As you have recently had a disappointing experience with this agency, you feel it's your duty to give your friend some advice. Write a 12-line letter in which you describe your bad experience and advise him against traveling with this agency. Use sound arguments and examples. Sound arguments means convincing arguments. Let's read then for this letter. What am I asked to write? I am asked to write a letter. But to whom am I writing? I'm writing to a friend. And there are keywords. For example, you are provided with, okay, so these instructions were taken from previous back tests, and the students were given, you see, the greeting, for example, dear Adam. So we understand, and even the instructions, they say write a letter to your friend. Consequently, this is an informal letter. Why am I writing? To advise him or her not to travel with the agency mentioned. I go back to the second letter. Last year, you went on a package tour holiday. You had a great time and you were very satisfied with the place the tour operator had chosen and the services offered. Once home, you decided to write a letter to the tour operator to thank him or her. Write the letter below. So here we understand I am writing a letter again. It's a letter, but to whom am I writing? I am writing to the tour operator. Consequently, I'm going to write a formal letter. I have the keywords, dear sir, dear madam. And the purpose of writing, why am I writing? I'm writing to thank him for the good service he has offered. Therefore, what type of letter I'm going to write? I'm going to write a formal thank you letter, okay, to thank the tour operator. So far, I think we have been through the different types of exercises, okay, that you might be assigned in the back exam. But before we leave, let me give you some final recommendations. First, devote enough time to reading the 3 components of the test before starting to work. Okay? Read the comprehension, read the writing, the 2 types of exercises, the instructions, and read the language part. Then start with the section you feel the most confident in, no matter which section it is. Okay? Start with the part you feel the most confident in. That's very important. Do not jump from one exercise or one section to another. This will make you waste time, and also it will make you lose the thread of ideas, especially if you are writing, if you are doing the writing exercises. The next recommendation says to read the instructions carefully and comply to what you have been asked to do, whatever the section is. For example, if you are asked, as we said in the previous session, to tick, to underline, to circle, okay, to be careful to the number of words, the number of details you are asked to find in the text. Be careful, for example, in the writing part to what you are asked to write. Okay, a letter, an article, a report, a paragraph. So, to whom you are writing. All these details are important. Organize your plan and ideas on a draft paper before writing on the exam paper, because the exam paper has to be neat. Okay, so you have to write everything, at least your ideas on the draft paper before starting to write on the exam paper. That's very important. Please mind your handwriting. It must be clear, it must be neat, and it must be readable. Otherwise, your mark will be affected, especially in the language part. As we said in the previous session, spelling mistakes in the language part are penalized. So mind your handwriting. Do not feel discouraged from any new or unfamiliar words. Try to understand them through the context. Okay, maybe you need to skip these words and then you reread your sentence or the paragraph. You might understand them later. Finally, do not rush to hand your paper in and leave the exam room, because once you leave, you cannot go back. So take your time. You will have plenty of time, and we cannot really wish you something more than the best of luck to all of you, especially this year. Okay, so with these exceptional circumstances, so don't forget that optimism is the faith that leads to achievement, and nothing can be done without hope and confidence. This is what Helen Keller said, and I think is the best thing we can end this session with. So good luck to all of you. Thank you.